The 5-minute daily system for lifelong calm. Introduction. The bet that changes everything. I'm going to make you a bet. Give me 5 minutes a day for the next 30 days, and I promise you'll become the calmest person in any room you enter. If it doesn't work, you've lost nothing but 2.5 hours total. But if it does work, everything changes. Sound too good to be true? I understand your skepticism. You've probably tried everything already. Meditation apps that made you feel worse, self-help books that promised transformation but delivered nothing, therapy that helped you understand your problems but didn't give you the tools to fix them. Maybe you've even been told that this is just who you are, that some people are anxious, reactive, or easily overwhelmed, and there's nothing to be done about it. That's a lie. And I'm going to prove it to you. Most people live their entire lives as passengers in their own nervous systems. Something happens, a rude comment, a traffic jam, a disappointing email, a child's tantrum, and boom, their body hijacks them, heart racing, jaw clenched, hands shaking, mind spinning with imaginary arguments they'll never have. 3 hours later, they're still replaying it, their entire day ruined by a 30-second interaction. You know this feeling intimately. We all do. It's the sensation of being controlled by forces you can't see or name. It's exhausting, demoralizing, and it makes you feel weak. You've snapped at people you love. You've made decisions you regretted. You've laid awake at 3 a.m, your mind racing through worst-case scenarios, unable to shut off the anxiety spiral. And worst of all, you've probably blamed yourself. If only you were stronger, if only you had more willpower, if only you could just calm down. Here's what nobody tells you. This isn't a character flaw. It's not about being too sensitive or needing to toughen up. Your nervous system is doing exactly what it was designed to do, react to threats. The problem? It can't tell the difference between a lion chasing you across the savannah and your boss sending a passive-aggressive email. To your amygdala, they're the same thing: danger. For the past 15 years, I've dedicated my life to understanding this problem. I've studied neuroscience at leading research institutions. I've interviewed emergency room doctors, Buddhist monks, Navy SEALs, and professional athletes, people who maintain impossible calm under extreme pressure. I've read thousands of studies on stress, physiology, trauma recovery, and emotional regulation, and I've worked with thousands of clients, from executives having panic attacks in board meetings to parents screaming at their kids every morning to combat veterans who couldn't sleep without nightmares. What I discovered changed everything I thought I knew about emotional regulation. The secret isn't meditation for hours. It isn't cognitive behavioral therapy or positive affirmations. It isn't about changing your thoughts or trying harder or being more mindful. All of those approaches work from the top down. They try to use your thinking brain to control your emotional brain. But here's the problem with top-down approaches. When you're stressed, your thinking brain goes offline. Blood flow redirects away from your prefrontal cortex to your limbs, preparing you to fight or flee. Trying to think your way out of stress when you're already dysregulated is like trying to use a computer that's been unplugged. It simply doesn't work. The approaches that actually work are bottom-up. They target your nervous system directly, changing the physical state of your body first. Once your body is calm, your mind follows automatically. You don't have to convince yourself everything is fine. Your nervous system knows it's fine because you've sent it the right signals. The steady state system is the culmination of everything I've learned. It's a simple, 5-minute daily practice that rewires how your nervous system responds to stress. It's so simple that when I first discovered it, I almost dismissed it. Surely something this easy couldn't solve a problem this complex. But the science is undeniable, and the results speak for themselves. In this audiobook, I'm going to teach you the exact system that has transformed thousands of lives. You'll understand why you react the way you do, what's really happening in your brain during stressful moments, and most importantly, how to train yourself to stay calm when everyone else is losing it. But here's the deal. You have to do the work, 5 minutes a day for 30 days. That's it. No excuses about being too busy. If you can't find 5 minutes, you're not serious about changing your life. And if you're not serious about changing your life, close this audiobook right now and go back to whatever you were doing. I'm not here to waste your time with theory and motivation. I'm here to give you a tool that works, but only if you use it. So do we have a bet? 5 minutes a day, 30 days, 2.5 hours total. If it doesn't work, you've lost almost nothing. But if it does work, and I promise you it will, you'll never be the same. You'll walk into stressful situations with a quiet confidence that others can feel but can't explain. You'll make better decisions because your thinking brain actually has the resources it needs. You'll sleep better, connect deeper, and stop wasting energy on emotional reactions that serve no one. Are you in? Then let's begin. Chapter 1. The Nervous System Hijack. Meet your two brains. Let me tell you about Sarah. She's a single mum with 2 kids, working 2 jobs, barely keeping her head above water. Every morning starts the same way. Alarm goes off at 5:30. Kids won't get out of bed. She burns the toast, spills coffee on her shirt. Traffic is a nightmare. And by the time she gets to work at 7:45, she's already snapped at her children 3 times and feels like the worst mother in the world. Sarah came to me, convinced she had an anger management problem. She'd tried counting to 10. She'd tried taking deep breaths. She'd tried reminding herself that her kids were just being kids. Nothing worked. The rage would just explode out of her, and she'd hate herself immediately afterward. But Sarah didn't have an anger problem. She had a nervous system problem. And once we fixed that, everything else fell into place. To understand what was happening to Sarah and what's probably happening to you, you need to understand the fundamental architecture of your brain. Inside your skull, 2 distinct systems are constantly competing for control, and the winner determines whether you respond to stress with wisdom or reactivity. The first system is your thinking brain, centered in your prefrontal cortex. This is the newest part of your brain evolutionarily, the part that makes you distinctly human. It handles executive functions, planning, reasoning, impulse control, emotional regulation. It's the voice in your head that says, "Don't send that angry email," or "Maybe there's a reasonable explanation for why they're late." Your thinking brain is slow, deliberate, and energy intensive. It weighs options, considers consequences, and tries to make rational decisions. The second system is your survival brain, centered in the amygdala and limbic system. This is ancient circuitry that predates language, logic, and consciousness itself. It doesn't think, it reacts. And it's fast. Incredibly fast. It can activate a full stress response in under 200 milliseconds before your thinking brain even knows what's happening. Your survival brain has one job and one job only: keep you alive. It's constantly scanning your environment for threats, processing thousands of data points every second. Is that person's tone aggressive? Is that situation dangerous? Is that sensation in your body a sign of illness? When it detects a threat, real or imagined, it doesn't waste time deliberating. It acts. The stress response your survival brain triggers is a masterpiece of biological engineering. In milliseconds, your hypothalamus signals your pituitary gland, which signals your adrenal glands to flood your bloodstream with cortisol and adrenaline. Your heart rate spikes, pumping blood faster. Your blood pressure rises. Your pupils dilate to take in more visual information. Your muscles tense, preparing for action. Blood flow redirects away from your digestive system and prefrontal cortex toward your limbs. You don't need to digest food or think deeply when you're running from a predator. This is the fight or flight response, and it's incredibly useful when you're facing actual physical danger. If a car is careening toward you, you don't want to stand there pondering your options. You want your survival brain to take over and get you out of the way. The stress response has kept humans alive for hundreds of thousands of years. But here's the catastrophic mismatch. Your survival brain was designed for a world that no longer exists. 200,000 years ago, threats were simple, immediate, and life-threatening. Predators, rival tribes, starvation, cliffs, snakes, things that could kill you right now. The stress response was meant to be activated briefly in genuine emergencies and then turned off. Today's threats are completely different. A critical email from your boss, a passive-aggressive comment from your mother-in-law, traffic jams, social media arguments, financial worries, relationship conflicts, work deadlines, political news. None of these things can actually hurt you in the moment, but your survival brain doesn't know that. It evolved in an environment where any unexpected stimulus could be lethal, so it treats everything as potentially dangerous until proven otherwise. This is why you can't just calm down when someone tells you to. Your thinking brain, the part that understands the email isn't actually dangerous, has been taken offline by the stress response. Blood has literally drained away from your prefrontal cortex. Your survival brain is driving now, and it doesn't care about your goals, your relationships, or your reputation. It only cares about survival. Sarah's mornings were a perfect example of this hijack. She'd wake up already behind schedule, threat detected. Kids moving slowly, threat to her punctuality. Spilled coffee, another threat. Traffic, yet another threat. By the time her daughter couldn't find her shoes, Sarah's survival brain had been activated 4 or 5 times already, and it was only 7 in the morning. Her thinking brain was offline. The yelling wasn't a choice. It was an automatic stress response to perceived threats. The chronic stress spiral. Most people think the problem with stress is the acute episode itself, the argument, the panic attack, the sleepless night. But that's just the visible symptom of a much deeper problem. The real damage happens to your nervous system over time, creating a vicious cycle that's incredibly difficult to break without understanding what's happening. Every time your survival brain activates, it carves a neural pathway. Think of it like walking through a forest. The first time, you have to push through dense brush, step over logs, navigate around trees. It's slow and difficult, but if you walk the same route again, it's slightly easier. The vegetation is already disturbed. Your feet follow the same path. Walk it 100 times, and you've created a well-worn trail that you can follow almost automatically without thinking. This is neural plasticity, the brain's ability to change its structure based on experience. It's the mechanism behind all learning, from riding a bicycle to speaking a language. But it works both ways. Just as you can train positive patterns, you can accidentally train destructive ones. If you're someone who frequently experiences stress, anxiety, or anger, your brain has carved deep neural highways leading straight to those states. Your default response to challenges has become dysregulation. You don't consciously choose to get anxious when your boss emails you. It happens automatically because that neural pathway is so well established. But there's an even more insidious aspect to chronic stress. It actually changes the physical structure of your brain. Dr. Robert Sapolsky, a neuroscientist at Stanford and one of the world's leading stress researchers, has documented this extensively. Chronic stress literally shrinks your hippocampus, the brain region responsible for memory, learning, and putting the brakes on your stress response. At the same time, it enlarges your amygdala, making you even more reactive to potential threats. Let that sink in for a moment. Chronic stress makes your stress response stronger and your ability to regulate it weaker. It's a positive feedback loop in the worst possible way. The more stressed you are, the more easily you become stressed, which makes you more stressed, which makes you more easily stressed. Without intervention, this spiral continues until you're in a constant state of threat activation, exhausted, reactive, and unable to access the calm, rational person you know you're capable of being. There's another critical cost to chronic stress that most people don't realize: decision fatigue. Your survival brain is metabolically expensive to run. When it's constantly activated, it drains your mental resources at an alarming rate. This is why you make terrible decisions when you're stressed, why you say things you immediately regret, why you can't focus on complex tasks, why you eat poorly, skip exercise, and engage in other behaviors you know are counterproductive. It's not a lack of willpower. Your thinking brain simply doesn't have enough energy left. All your cognitive resources are being consumed by the stress response, leaving nothing for executive function, emotional regulation, or good decision-making. Sarah was caught in this exact spiral. Every stressful morning reinforced the reactive pathway. Every time she snapped at her kids, her brain learned, "This is how we handle stress." The neural pathway deepened. Her hippocampus shrank slightly. Her amygdala became more sensitive. By the time she came to me, her nervous system was so dysregulated that even minor stressors, a red light, a misplaced key, would trigger a full stress response. She wasn't a bad mother. She wasn't weak. She was trapped in a neurological pattern that her brain had learned too well. The window of tolerance, your emotional bandwidth. To understand how to fix the chronic stress spiral, you first need to understand a crucial concept from trauma therapy that applies to everyone, not just trauma survivors: the window of tolerance. Imagine your emotional regulation as a window. When you're inside this window, what psychologists call your window of tolerance, you're in your optimal zone of arousal. You can think clearly, respond flexibly, and handle whatever life throws at you. You feel calm but engaged, present but not overwhelmed, able to experience emotions without being consumed by them. This is where you want to spend most of your time. But when stress pushes you outside this window, everything changes. Go above the window into hyperarousal, and you experience anxiety, panic, rage, racing thoughts, hypervigilance, and emotional reactivity. Your survival brain has taken over completely. You're all gas pedal, no brakes. You might pace, fidget, snap at people, or feel like you're going to explode. Go below the window into hypoarousal, and you experience the opposite: numbness, depression, disconnection, shutdown, brain fog, and emotional flatness. This is your nervous system's last-ditch protective strategy. If it can't fight or flee the threat, it collapses and plays dead. You might feel exhausted, unable to care about anything, or like you're watching your life through a fog. Here's the critical insight that most people miss. Your window of tolerance isn't fixed. Some people have naturally wide windows. They can handle enormous amounts of stress before they dysregulate. They're the people who stay calm during emergencies, who can have difficult conversations without getting defensive, who seem unflappable under pressure. Other people have narrow windows. The smallest stressor sends them spiraling into hyperarousal or hypoarousal. They might have been born with a more sensitive nervous system, or they might have experienced chronic stress or trauma that narrowed their window over time. Either way, they spend very little time in the regulated zone where they feel capable and in control. But here's the revolutionary part. Your window can be widened. That's what the steady state system does. It doesn't just help you calm down in the moment, though it does that too. It fundamentally expands your capacity to stay regulated under pressure. Over time, situations that used to push you outside your window barely register. You don't become emotionless or detached. You become steady, grounded, resilient. Think about someone you know who seems genuinely unflappable. The person who stays present during family conflicts, who doesn't take criticism personally, who can receive bad news without spiraling, who maintains their composure in meetings even when being aggressively challenged. They're not suppressing their emotions or pretending everything is fine. They're not superhuman or fundamentally different from you. They just have a wider window of tolerance, and they've learned, consciously or unconsciously, how to stay inside it. When stress starts to push them toward the edge, they have tools to bring themselves back to center. Their nervous system has been trained to handle intensity without dysregulating. This is completely trainable, absolutely, reliably trainable. Your nervous system is like a muscle. It responds to consistent, appropriate exercise. 5 minutes a day of the right practice, and your window begins to expand. Neural pathways for regulation strengthen, while pathways for reactivity weaken. Your hippocampus begins to recover, while your amygdala becomes less sensitive. Your baseline level of nervous system activation decreases. You start spending more time in the calm, capable zone where you can actually think clearly and make good decisions. Sarah's window was incredibly narrow when we started. The slightest thing, a spilled drink, a forgotten homework assignment, 5 minutes of traffic, would spike her into hyperarousal. She spent most of her day either in fight or flight mode or collapsed in exhaustion. She had almost no time inside her window where she felt capable and present. But windows can be widened, and that's exactly what we're going to do for you. Chapter 2. The Biology of Calm. The vagus nerve, your body's master switch. Now that you understand the problem, a dysregulated nervous system with a narrow window of tolerance, let's talk about the solution. And it all comes down to one remarkable piece of anatomy that most people have never heard of: the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is the longest nerve in your body, originating in your brainstem and wandering. The word vagus literally means wandering, down through your neck, chest, and abdomen. It touches your heart, lungs, digestive system, and most of your major organs. It's the main communication highway of your parasympathetic nervous system, carrying signals back and forth between your brain and your body. Think of your nervous system as having two branches with opposing functions. The sympathetic branch is your gas pedal. It activates the stress response, speeding everything up to prepare you for action. The parasympathetic branch, controlled primarily by the vagus nerve, is your brake pedal. It activates the relaxation response, slowing everything down so you can rest, digest, and recover. In a healthy, well-regulated nervous system, these two branches work in dynamic balance. Gas when you need it, brakes when you don't. You speed up to handle challenges, then slow down to recover. This is called vagal flexibility, and it's one of the strongest predictors of both physical and mental health. But in chronically stressed people, which is most modern humans, the brake stops working properly. The vagus nerve becomes less responsive, what scientists call low vagal tone. Your nervous system gets stuck with the gas pedal pressed down. You're constantly activated, constantly vigilant, constantly ready for threats that never fully materialize. Your body thinks it's still running from predators, even when you're just sitting at your desk answering emails. Low vagal tone shows up in measurable ways. Your heart rate variability, the natural variation in time between heartbeats, decreases. This might sound technical, but it's actually one of the most important biomarkers we have. High heart rate variability means your nervous system is flexible and responsive. Low heart rate variability is associated with increased risk of anxiety, depression, heart disease, inflammation, and early mortality. With low vagal tone, you also experience slower digestion, worse sleep, higher baseline anxiety, more frequent illness, and difficulty recovering from stress. Even minor challenges feel overwhelming because your nervous system is already operating near capacity. You have no reserve left. But here's the revolutionary discovery that changed everything. You can directly train your vagus nerve. You can strengthen your brake system. And when you do, everything changes. Dr. Stephen Porges, who developed polyvagal theory and fundamentally changed our understanding of the nervous system, has shown that people with high vagal tone can downregulate their stress response in seconds. They experience stress. They're not robots, but they don't get stuck in it. They can activate the stress response when needed and deactivate it quickly when it's not. This is the difference between resilience and reactivity. People with high vagal tone also experience what Porges calls social engagement. Their nervous system isn't in constant threat mode, so they can actually connect with others. Their facial expressions are more animated. Their voice has more prosody and warmth. They make eye contact naturally. They can listen without getting defensive. In short, they can be present with other humans in a way that chronically stressed people simply can't. And the best part? Training your vagal tone doesn't require hours of meditation, expensive biofeedback equipment, or any special circumstances. The most effective techniques are simple, free, and take just minutes a day. You're about to learn the most powerful one: the breath-nervous system connection. There's a reason that every tradition focused on mental and physical mastery, from ancient yoga to modern military training, emphasizes breath control. Breathing is the only function of your autonomic nervous system that you can consciously control. It's the bridge between your voluntary and involuntary systems, and that makes it incredibly powerful. When you're stressed, your breathing becomes rapid and shallow. This isn't just a symptom of stress, it's a cause of more stress. Rapid, shallow breathing sends a signal to your brain. Danger! We need to escape. Your brain responds by activating more stress response, which makes your breathing even more rapid and shallow. It's a vicious feedback loop. But you can interrupt this loop. When you deliberately slow and deepen your breathing, you send the opposite signal to your brain. We're safe. Everything is under control. Your brain responds by activating the parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest mode. Your heart rate slows. Your blood pressure drops. Stress hormones begin to clear from your bloodstream. Blood flow returns to your prefrontal cortex, bringing your thinking brain back online. This isn't metaphorical or woo-woo. This is direct, measurable physiology. You are directly activating your vagus nerve through controlled breathing. You are manually pressing your body's brake pedal. The specific breathing pattern matters enormously. Not all breathing techniques have the same effect. Some are designed to energize you, useful for athletes or anyone needing to increase alertness. Others are designed to calm you, useful for managing stress and anxiety. What you're about to learn is the most effective calming pattern ever documented in the scientific literature. Dr. Andrew Huberman, a neuroscientist at Stanford, has called it the fastest way to reduce stress in real time. It's been studied in emergency responders, military personnel, and people with anxiety disorders. It works every time, for everyone, without exception. And it takes about 10 seconds. But before I teach you the technique, you need to understand one more crucial piece of physiology: the relationship between breathing and carbon dioxide. Most people think that the purpose of breathing is to get oxygen into your bloodstream. That's partially true, but it's not the main driver of your urge to breathe. The real driver is carbon dioxide buildup. When CO2 levels in your blood rise, sensors in your brainstem trigger the urge to breathe. This is why you can hold your breath for only so long, not because you're running out of oxygen, but because CO2 is accumulating to uncomfortable levels. When you're stressed and breathing rapidly, you're expelling too much carbon dioxide. This causes the tiny air sacs in your lungs, called alveoli, to collapse slightly. Collapsed alveoli can't exchange gases efficiently, so your body compensates by making you breathe even faster. More stress, more shallow breathing, more alveoli collapse, more stress. Another vicious cycle. The breathing technique you're about to learn breaks both cycles simultaneously. It reinflates your alveoli and activates your vagus nerve. It's elegantly simple and devastatingly effective. Why? Most approaches to stress management fail. Before I teach you what works, let me save you years of frustration by explaining what doesn't work and why. Understanding this will prevent you from wasting time on approaches that sound good in theory but fail in practice. Positive thinking doesn't work. Telling yourself everything is fine or just think positively when your body is in full stress response creates internal conflict. Your thinking brain is saying one thing, but your survival brain, which has direct access to your body's physiological state, knows something different. Your amygdala knows your heart is racing, your muscles are tense, and stress hormones are flooding your system. It's not fooled by positive affirmations. In fact, the disconnect between what you're telling yourself and what your body is experiencing can increase anxiety. Venting doesn't work. Despite what decades of pop psychology have told us, expressing your anger by yelling, hitting pillows, or getting it out doesn't reduce anger. It reinforces it. Every time you vent, you're literally practicing being angry. You're deepening the neural pathway that leads to rage. You're training your nervous system to respond to frustration with explosive reactivity. The research on this is unambiguous. Cathartic release increases aggression rather than decreasing it. Distraction doesn't work. Scrolling social media, binge-watching shows, drinking alcohol, or any other form of numbing might provide temporary relief, but they don't address the underlying dysregulation. Your nervous system is still stuck in threat mode. You've just found a way to ignore it for a while. When the distraction ends, the stress is still there, often intensified by the guilt or consequences of your avoidance behavior. Even traditional meditation often fails for highly stressed people. Here's why. If your nervous system is significantly dysregulated, sitting still with your eyes closed can feel unbearable. Your mind races. Your body fidgets. You feel like you're going to explode. This isn't because you're bad at meditation. It's because your nervous system needs to be regulated before you can meditate effectively. Meditation is an advanced practice for calm nervous systems, not a beginner tool for dysregulated ones. All of these approaches fail for the same fundamental reason. They're top-down strategies trying to use your thinking brain to control your emotional state. But when you're stressed, your thinking brain is offline. You can't think your way out of a physiological state of threat activation. The approaches that actually work are bottom-up. They target your nervous system directly, changing your body's physiological state first. Once your body is calm, your emotions and thoughts naturally follow. You don't have to convince yourself you're safe. Your nervous system knows it's safe because you've sent it the right physiological signals. This is what Sarah learned. When I first taught her the steady state system, she was deeply skeptical. 5 minutes of breathing? That's the solution? After years of therapy, medication trials, and self-help books, the answer was just breathing? Yes and no. Yes, the technique is simple, but simple doesn't mean easy, and it definitely doesn't mean ineffective. The specific breathing pattern I'm about to teach you has been refined over thousands of years of contemplative practice and validated by modern neuroscience. It works because it directly targets the physiology underlying your stress response. Within a week, Sarah noticed she didn't snap as quickly at minor annoyances. Within 2 weeks, her morning routine was no longer a battlefield. By 30 days, she told me something I'll never forget. I'm still me. I still feel things deeply, but I'm not at war with myself anymore. I can actually be present with my kids instead of just surviving until bedtime. That's what steady state feels like. Not emotionless, not detached, not pretending everything is fine, just steady, grounded, present. Able to handle what comes without losing yourself in the process. In the next chapter, I'll teach you the exact practice that makes this possible. The same practice that changed Sarah's life. The same practice that has worked for thousands of people before you. The same practice that will work for you if you do it. Chapter 3. The 5-minute steady state practice. The foundation. The physiological sigh. Let me give you the practice that changes everything. It's deceptively simple, which is why most people initially underestimate it. But the neuroscience behind it is profound, and the results are undeniable. The foundation of the steady state system is something called the physiological sigh. This is not something I invented. It's a natural behavior that occurs spontaneously in mammals, including humans. You've probably done it thousands of times without noticing. It happens automatically when you've been concentrating hard, when you're stressed, or when you're transitioning between sleep stages. Your body knows it needs to reset, so it triggers this specific breathing pattern. What researchers discovered is that you can trigger this response voluntarily, and when you do, you get all the benefits of the natural stress reduction mechanism that evolution built into your nervous system. Dr. Andrew Huberman and his colleagues at Stanford have called it the fastest way to reduce stress in real time that has ever been documented. Here's how to do it. Take a deep breath in through your nose, filling your lungs about 80% full. Don't force it, just a comfortable deep inhale. Before you exhale, take a second, shorter breath in through your nose. This tops off your lungs completely, getting them to full capacity. This second inhale is crucial. It's what makes this a physiological sigh rather than just a deep breath. Then exhale slowly and completely through your mouth, taking twice as long as the combined inhales. Let all the air out. Don't force it, but let it be thorough. That's it. One cycle takes about 10 to 12 seconds. But what happens in those 10 seconds is remarkable. Remember the collapsed alveoli I mentioned earlier? When you're stressed and breathing shallowly, these tiny air sacs in your lungs begin to deflate, reducing your lungs' capacity to exchange oxygen and carbon dioxide. This triggers your body to breathe even faster to compensate, which increases anxiety in a vicious feedback loop. The double inhale, that second, topping off breath, fully reinflates all your alveoli at once. It's like popping open thousands of tiny balloons that had been compressed. This immediately improves gas exchange, allowing your body to offload built-up carbon dioxide. Within seconds, your blood chemistry starts to normalize. The long, slow exhale activates your parasympathetic nervous system. Remember, exhalation is intrinsically calming. It's associated with the vagus nerve-mediated brake pedal of your nervous system. The longer and slower the exhale, the stronger the signal to your brain that you're safe. Within 1 or 2 physiological sighs, you'll notice measurable changes. Your heart rate drops. You can actually feel this if you check your pulse. Your blood pressure decreases. The tension in your shoulders and jaw begins to release. Most importantly, blood flow returns to your prefrontal cortex, bringing your thinking brain back online. That foggy, reactive feeling starts to clear. This isn't placebo. This isn't positive thinking. This is direct physiological intervention. You're manually activating the neural and chemical pathways that calm your nervous system. It works, even if you don't believe in it. It works, even if you're skeptical. It works because you're leveraging fundamental human biology that's been with us for hundreds of thousands of years. The complete daily practice. Now let me give you the full practice. This is what you'll do every single day for the next 30 days. It takes exactly 5 minutes, and it will fundamentally rewire your nervous system. First, find your practice space. This can be anywhere you won't be interrupted. Your bedroom, your car, a conference room, a park bench, even a bathroom if necessary. You can sit or lie down. The only requirements are that you're comfortable and that you can be undisturbed for 5 minutes. Turn your phone to airplane mode. This is non-negotiable. If you can't disconnect for 5 minutes, you're not serious about changing your life. Set a timer for 5 minutes. This is important for several reasons. First, it frees you from checking the time, which is distracting. Second, it creates a clear container for the practice. Your brain needs to know there's a definite beginning and end. Third, it builds trust with yourself that this really will only take 5 minutes, making it easier to commit daily. Minute 1. Start with 3 physiological sighs. Deep breath in through your nose. Second, shorter breath in through your nose. Long exhale through your mouth. Pause naturally. Repeat 2 more times. Don't rush this. Give each cycle the 10 to 12 seconds it needs. Feel your body begin to settle. Notice the quality of your mind starting to shift. Minutes. 2. Through 4. Now shift to box breathing, also called square breathing. This is a rhythm used by Navy SEALs, emergency responders, and anyone who needs to maintain composure under extreme pressure. Here's the pattern. Breathe in through your nose for a count of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Fill your lungs comfortably, not to maximum capacity. Hold your breath for a count of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Don't strain. This should be comfortable. Breathe out through your nose or mouth for a count of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Empty your lungs completely, but without force. Hold your breath empty for a count of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 1 cycle. Repeat this pattern for 3 full minutes. You'll complete about 12 to 15 cycles in this time. As you breathe, thoughts will come. This is completely normal and not a problem. Your mind's job is to think, and it's very good at its job. Don't fight the thoughts or try to suppress them. Instead, practice what meditation teachers call noting. When you notice you've gotten lost in thought, mentally note thinking and gently return your attention to the breath. In for 4, hold for 4, out for 4, hold for 4. Every time you notice you've wandered and bring yourself back, you're strengthening your attention muscle. That moment of noticing and returning is the practice. It's not a failure, it's a repetition, like doing a bicep curl at the gym. The more you do it, the stronger you get. You might also notice physical sensations, tingling, warmth, coolness, pressure, tension, relaxation. Simply notice these without judgment. You might notice emotions arising, sadness, anger, peace, joy, anxiety. Again, just notice. You're not trying to feel good or get rid of bad feelings. You're training your nervous system to stay present with whatever arises. Minute 5. Finish with one final physiological sigh. Deep breath in through your nose. Second, shorter breath in through your nose. Long, slow exhale through your mouth. Let everything settle. Then sit quietly for the remaining moments until your timer goes off. Don't rush back into your day. Notice how your body feels. Notice the quality of your mind. Is it calmer, clearer, more focused? Just observe without judging. This brief moment of integration helps your nervous system lock in the benefits of the practice. That's the complete practice. 5 minutes, every single day, same time if possible. Habit formation is easier when you anchor the practice to a specific time or trigger. Many people practice first thing in the morning before the chaos of the day begins. Others practice during lunch break or before bed. Find what works for your schedule and make it sacred. Why? This specific practice works. You might be wondering why this specific combination of breathing techniques. Why physiological sighs at the beginning and end? Why box breathing in the middle? Why 5 minutes instead of 3 or 10? Every element of this practice has been carefully chosen based on both ancient wisdom and modern neuroscience. This isn't random. It's a precisely engineered intervention targeting specific aspects of your nervous system. The physiological sighs at the beginning serve as a rapid reset. They quickly downregulate your stress response, bringing you from whatever state you were in, likely some degree of hyperarousal, into a calmer baseline where you can actually practice effectively. Think of them as clearing the slate before you begin the main work. Box breathing serves multiple functions. First, the equal ratio of inhale, hold, exhale, hold creates a balanced activation of your nervous system. You're not just calming down, you're building regulatory capacity. The holds in particular are crucial. When you hold your breath after an inhale, you're building tolerance for carbon dioxide, which reduces anxiety sensitivity. When you hold after an exhale, you're strengthening your parasympathetic activation. Second, the counting aspect gives your mind something to do. One of the biggest challenges for beginners is that their mind feels overwhelmed by thoughts. Counting provides just enough structure to keep your attention anchored without being so complicated that it becomes another source of stress. 4 counts is also slow enough to be calming, but not so slow that it feels uncomfortable or forced. Third, 3 minutes of box breathing hits a sweet spot for nervous system training. It's long enough to create measurable changes in your physiology. Your heart rate variability begins to increase, your blood pressure continues to drop. Your brainwave patterns shift toward alpha and theta states associated with calm focus. But it's not so long that it becomes boring or difficult for beginners. The final physiological sigh serves as both a bookend and a consolidation. It signals to your nervous system that the practice is complete, while also providing one last strong dose of vagal activation. Many people report that this final sigh is when they feel the deepest sense of release and relaxation. The 5-minute duration is also strategic. It's short enough that you can't reasonably say you don't have time. Most people waste more than 5 minutes per day scrolling social media or staring into space. It's long enough to create real change. 5 minutes of focused breathing practice activates measurable neurochemical and physiological shifts that extend well beyond the practice session itself. But perhaps most importantly, 5 minutes is sustainable. Many people start ambitious meditation practices of 20 or 30 minutes, do well for a few days, then quit when life gets busy. 5 minutes is a practice you can maintain for decades. And consistency beats intensity every time when it comes to nervous system training. Over the 30 days of daily practice, you're creating cumulative changes. Each session slightly increases your baseline vagal tone. Each session slightly widens your window of tolerance. Each session slightly strengthens the neural pathways for regulation while weakening the pathways for reactivity. Day by day, you're literally rebuilding your nervous system. The emergency protocol, real-time stress relief. The daily 5-minute practice is your training. It's how you build a robust, resilient nervous system over time. But what about when stress hits in real time? What do you do when your boss criticizes you in a meeting? When your partner says something hurtful? When you're stuck in traffic and already late? When your toddler has a meltdown in the grocery store? This is where the physiological sigh becomes your secret weapon. An invisible, instantaneous reset button you can press anytime, anywhere, in any situation. The moment you feel your body starting to react, and with practice, you'll catch this earlier and earlier in the sequence. Do 1 to 3 physiological sighs. You don't need to close your eyes or stop what you're doing, just breathe. Deep breath in through your nose, shorter second breath in, long exhale through your mouth. If you're in a situation where breathing through your mouth would be conspicuous, you can exhale through your nose instead. It's slightly less effective, but still works. Here's what happens when you deploy this in real time. Your stress response has started to activate. Your amygdala has detected a potential threat and begun the cascade of hormones and neural signals that constitute the fight or flight response. Your heart rate is rising, your muscles are tensing, your thinking brain is starting to go offline. The physiological sigh interrupts this cascade before it fully develops. You're essentially catching the stress response in its early stages and hitting the brakes. The reinflation of your alveoli and the activation of your vagus nerve send a powerful signal to your brain. False alarm, stand down. The stress response begins to deactivate before it fully escalates into reactive behavior. This doesn't mean you become emotionless. You'll still feel annoyed, frustrated, disappointed, or whatever emotion the situation warrants. But you won't be hijacked by those feelings. You'll be able to feel them while maintaining access to your thinking brain. You'll be able to choose how to respond rather than reacting automatically. Let me give you a real example. Michael, a senior executive I worked with, was in a board meeting being aggressively questioned about a decision his team had made. He could feel his body gearing up to fight, jaw clenching, face flushing, defensive arguments forming in his mind. In the past, he would have snapped back, gotten into an argument, and damaged relationships. This time, while another board member was speaking, he did 2 physiological sighs. Nobody noticed. He just looked like he was breathing normally. But those 20 seconds changed the trajectory of the meeting. The surge of defensiveness passed. His thinking brain stayed online. When it was his turn to speak, he was able to respond calmly and factually to the concerns being raised. The meeting, which had been heading toward conflict, shifted into productive problem-solving. Michael told me afterward, I could feel my body wanting to fight. Every instinct was screaming at me to defend myself, but the breath gave me space between the trigger and my response. Just a few seconds of space, but that was enough to choose a different path. This is the power of having a nervous system you can trust. You know you have a tool that works. You know you can regulate yourself in the moment. Stressful situations don't own you anymore. You can handle them without losing yourself in the process. The beautiful thing about the emergency protocol is that it gets more effective the more you practice. As your daily practice strengthens your baseline vagal tone and widens your window of tolerance, the emergency sighs become even more powerful. You're not starting from a place of chronic dysregulation anymore. You're starting from a relatively calm baseline, so it takes less intervention to return to center. Chapter 4. The First Week. What to Expect. Day 1. The Awkward Beginning. Let me be completely honest with you about what the first week feels like. I'm not going to sugarcoat this or pretend it's all blissful peace from day 1. If I did, you'd try it, find it difficult, and quit, thinking you were doing something wrong or that the practice doesn't work. So let me prepare you for reality. Day 1 will feel strange, probably uncomfortable, definitely awkward. You'll sit down, set your timer, and immediately think, this is weird. Am I really just going to sit here breathing? Your mind will wander within seconds. You'll wonder if you're doing it right. You might feel self-conscious or silly, even though nobody's watching. This is completely normal. You've probably never deliberately trained your nervous system before. It feels foreign because it is foreign. Your brain doesn't have a category for this activity yet. That's okay. Do it anyway. During the physiological sighs, you might notice they don't feel particularly relaxing at first. You might even feel slightly uncomfortable with the double inhale or the long exhale. Your body isn't used to this pattern. It might take a few cycles before it starts to feel natural. Again, this is normal. Keep going. During the box breathing, your mind will wander constantly. You'll get lost in thought and suddenly realize you have no idea if you're supposed to be breathing in or holding or what count you're on. This happens to literally everyone on day 1. It's not a sign that you're bad at this. It's a sign that you're doing it. The practice isn't to have a quiet mind. The practice is to notice when your mind has wandered and bring it back. Every time you notice and return, you're succeeding. You might also feel restless. Your body might want to fidget, check your phone, get up and do something, anything, other than sit there breathing. This restlessness is actually a form of avoidance. Your nervous system is used to being constantly stimulated, constantly distracted. 5 minutes of focused attention feels threatening to it. Notice the restlessness, but don't give in to it. Stay with the practice. When your timer goes off after 5 minutes, you might feel disappointed. That's it. I don't feel any different. Or you might feel relieved that it's over. Either reaction is fine. The benefits of this practice are cumulative. You're not looking for a dramatic shift on day 1. You're building a foundation. The most important thing about day 1 is simply that you did it. You showed up. You completed the practice. That's a win. Celebrate it. Then commit to showing up again tomorrow. Days 2 and 3. The resistance. Day 2 might actually feel harder than day 1. The novelty has worn off, but the benefits haven't kicked in yet. Your brain will offer you every excuse imaginable to skip the practice. I'm too busy today. I didn't sleep well. I'll do it tomorrow. This isn't working anyway. Maybe I should try a different technique. 5 minutes won't make a difference. I'll do it later. I already feel calm. I don't need to practice today. I'm too stressed to practice right now. I'll wait until I'm calmer. These are all lies your brain tells you to avoid the discomfort of change. Your nervous system has been operating in its current pattern for years, maybe decades. That pattern is familiar, even if it's dysfunctional. Change feels threatening, so your brain will try to sabotage the process. This is where you need to rely on commitment rather than motivation. Motivation is unreliable. Some days you'll feel motivated, other days you won't. Commitment is showing up regardless of how you feel. You don't need to feel like practicing, you just need to practice. On day 3, you might notice something interesting. The practice itself is slightly easier. Your body is beginning to remember the breathing patterns. You're getting lost in thoughts slightly less frequently or catching yourself sooner. These are subtle changes, easy to miss if you're looking for dramatic transformation. But they're significant. Your nervous system is learning. You might also notice, and this is crucial, that you're becoming aware of your stress earlier in the day. You catch yourself clenching your jaw during a difficult email. You notice your shoulders creeping up toward your ears during a tense conversation. This increased awareness is a huge win, even though it might not feel like one. You can't regulate what you don't notice. The fact that you're catching these signals earlier means your interoceptive awareness is improving. Days 4 and 5, the critical junction. Days 4 and 5 are where most people quit. This is the danger zone. You're far enough in that the practice feels like work, but not far enough to see clear benefits. Nothing dramatic has happened. You haven't transformed into a Zen master. You might even feel like you're getting worse because you're more aware of your stress. The skeptical voice in your head gets louder. See? I knew this wouldn't work. 5 minutes of breathing isn't going to fix years of anxiety. This is stupid. I should quit while I'm ahead and try something else. This is the critical junction. This is where you prove to yourself whether you're serious about change or just dabbling. Most people quit here. They give up right before the benefits start to become noticeable. It's like someone who plants a seed, waters it for 4 days, sees no sprout, and digs it up, not realizing that on day 6, it would have broken through the soil. Here's what I want you to remember on days 4 and 5. The practice is working even when you can't feel it working. Every session, every breath cycle, every moment of focused attention is creating measurable changes in your nervous system. Your vagal tone is increasing. New neural pathways are forming. Your amygdala is becoming less reactive. Your hippocampus is beginning to recover. These changes are happening at a cellular level, invisible to your conscious awareness, but absolutely real. Think of it like going to the gym. You don't see muscle growth after 4 workouts, but the physiological processes that build muscle are happening from day 1. Protein synthesis, cellular adaptation, neural recruitment. You have to trust the process before you see the results. On day 5 specifically, many people report a subtle shift. Not a dramatic transformation, but a whisper of something different. Maybe you're stuck in traffic that would normally make you furious, but you notice you're relatively calm. Maybe you get criticized at work and you don't take it as personally as you usually would. Maybe you sleep slightly better. These shifts are easy to dismiss as coincidence or good luck. Don't. They're the first signs of your nervous system rewiring. Days 6 and 7. The first glimmers. If you've made it to day 6, congratulations. You're already ahead of most people. You've pushed through the resistance, and now you're about to understand why. Days 6 and 7 are often when people start to notice real, undeniable changes in their daily experience. Not huge transformations. Your life hasn't completely changed yet, but clear signals that something is different. The practice itself feels easier. Your body knows what to do now. The physiological sighs feel natural. The box breathing rhythm flows without constant mental effort. You're still getting lost in thought, but you're noticing sooner and returning more smoothly. The 5 minutes might even start to feel pleasant. But more importantly, you'll notice differences outside the practice. Someone says something that would normally set you off, and you pause before responding. You're in a stressful situation, and while you feel the stress, you don't feel overwhelmed by it. You have a difficult conversation, and afterward you realize you didn't get defensive. You face a disappointment, and you're able to process it without spiraling into catastrophic thinking. These moments might seem small, but they represent a fundamental shift in how your nervous system is functioning. Your window of tolerance is beginning to widen. Situations that used to push you into dysregulation are now manageable within your regulated zone. Let me tell you about James, a client who came to me with severe road rage. He'd had multiple near accidents because of his aggressive driving when angry. He'd been honked at, yelled at, even had someone follow him home once. On day 7 of the practice, he was cut off in traffic, an event that would typically send him into a rage spiral lasting hours. He felt the anger rising, did 2 physiological sighs while driving, and felt it dissipate. He told me, "I was shocked. The anger was still there, but it didn't take over. I was angry, but I wasn't acting from anger. That's never happened before." This is the magic of day 7. You're starting to see proof that this actually works. And that proof creates momentum that will carry you through the next weeks of practice. Chapter 5. The 2nd and 3rd weeks. Building momentum. Week 2. The shift becomes real. If you've made it to week 2, you've already accomplished something most people never will. You've established a daily nervous system practice. The majority of people quit before day 10, but you're still here. That means something important about your commitment to change. During week 2, the practice starts to feel less like work and more like maintenance. It's becoming a habit. Your body begins to anticipate it. If you've been practicing at the same time each day, you might even notice that you naturally feel more settled around that time, as if your nervous system knows what's coming and starts to prepare. The practice itself continues to deepen. Your breathing becomes more effortless. The box breathing rhythm might start to feel meditative rather than mechanical. You're able to maintain focus for longer stretches before your mind wanders. When it does wander, you notice more quickly and return more easily. You might even start to look forward to your 5 minutes, a small island of calm in an otherwise chaotic day. But the real changes are happening outside the practice. This is when people start to notice and comment on differences in how you show up. You seem calmer lately. You're handling this really well. What's different about you? These observations from others are powerful validation that the change isn't just in your head. You'll notice you're not as reactive to minor irritations. Traffic doesn't bother you as much. That person who always manages to get under your skin somehow bothers you less. You're less defensive in conversations. When someone criticizes you, you can actually hear what they're saying instead of immediately preparing your counter-argument. Your sleep might improve. This often comes as a surprise to people who started the practice for stress reduction, not insomnia. But they're connected. When your nervous system is chronically activated during the day, it can't downregulate properly at night. As your baseline activation decreases through daily practice, your body becomes better able to shift into rest mode when it's time to sleep. You might also notice you're making better decisions. This is because your prefrontal cortex, your thinking brain, now has the resources it needs to function properly. When you're not constantly running your expensive stress response, you have cognitive bandwidth for complex thought, planning, and emotional regulation. You're not as impulsive. You can delay gratification more easily. You think before you speak. One of my clients, Rachel, described week 2 like this. I realized I made it through an entire week without having a single argument with my husband. Not because we suddenly agreed on everything, but because I wasn't taking everything as a personal attack. I could hear his frustrations as just frustrations, not as criticisms of me as a person. That's never been possible before. This is your nervous system learning a new baseline. You're not suppressing your emotions or pretending everything is fine. You're genuinely experiencing situations differently because your window of tolerance is wider. Things that used to push you over the edge now barely register. Week 3. The compound effect. Week 3 is where things get really interesting. By now, you've completed at least 15 practice sessions. The neural pathways for regulation are solidifying. Your vagal tone has measurably improved. The changes are no longer subtle, they're undeniable. This is what I call the compound effect. The benefits of the practice begin to compound throughout your entire day, affecting everything you do. It's like you've installed a better operating system, and now every application runs more smoothly. Your emotional regulation has noticeably improved. You can feel frustration, disappointment, or anger without being controlled by those emotions. You have space between stimulus and response, that crucial gap where choice lives. You're less likely to say things you regret because you're not reacting from a dysregulated state. Your relationships are likely improving, even though you're not directly working on them. This happens because you're showing up differently. You're more present, less defensive, better able to listen. You can tolerate discomfort in conversations instead of needing to shut them down or escalate them. You're more generous in your interpretations of others' behavior because you're not filtering everything through a threat detection system on high alert. Your focus and productivity might increase. When your nervous system isn't constantly scanning for threats and managing stress responses, you have more cognitive resources available for actual work. Deep work becomes easier. You can sustain attention for longer periods. You're less distractible. Physical symptoms of stress often begin to decrease. Tension headaches become less frequent. Digestive issues improve. Remember, your gut and your nervous system are intimately connected. Muscle tension decreases. Some people notice their blood pressure dropping. Chronic pain might lessen. Your immune function improves. Chronic stress suppresses immunity, so as stress decreases, your body's natural defenses strengthen. You might also notice you're less interested in unhealthy coping mechanisms. You don't need that third glass of wine to unwind. You're not mindlessly scrolling social media for hours. You're not binge eating to numb discomfort. This happens automatically as your nervous system becomes better regulated. You simply don't need those external regulators anymore because you can self-regulate. Marcus, a veteran I worked with who had severe PTSD, told me about his week 3 experience. I went to a crowded restaurant for the first time in 3 years. Usually crowds send me into full panic. Too many people, too many variables, too many potential threats. This time, I felt the anxiety start to rise, did a few physiological sighs in the parking lot, and was able to go in and actually enjoy dinner with my family. My wife cried because she said it was like having her husband back. Common obstacles and how to overcome them. Even with the momentum of weeks 2 and 3, you'll face obstacles. Let me address the most common ones so you know how to navigate them. I don't have 5 minutes. This is the most common excuse, and it's rarely true. You have time to scroll social media. You have time to watch TV. You have time to worry. The issue isn't time, it's priority. If you genuinely don't have 5 minutes, your life is unsustainable and will eventually break you. Find the 5 minutes. Wake up 5 minutes earlier. Practice during your lunch break. Do it before bed. Make it absolutely non-negotiable. My mind won't stop racing. Good. That's not a problem. That's the practice. Your mind's job is to think, and it does that job constantly. You're not trying to stop your thoughts. You're training your ability to notice when you've been hijacked by thought and return to the present moment. Every time you notice and return, you're succeeding. The racing thoughts are opportunities for practice, not signs of failure. I fall asleep during the practice. This usually means one of two things. You're practicing lying down when you should be sitting up, or you're genuinely exhausted and your body desperately needs rest. Try practicing in a seated position. If you still fall asleep, your body is telling you something important. Get more sleep. You can't regulate a nervous system that's running on empty. I feel worse, not better. This occasionally happens when people first start regulating their nervous system, and it's actually a sign of progress, not failure. For years, you've been running on stress hormones and adrenaline, using constant activation to avoid feeling uncomfortable emotions. When you finally slow down enough to practice, those avoided emotions can surface. You're not creating new problems. You're becoming aware of problems that were always there but that you were too dysregulated to notice. This discomfort is temporary and is part of the healing process. Keep practicing. If the distress is severe or persistent, consider working with a therapist while maintaining the practice. I keep forgetting to do it. This is a habit formation issue, not a practice issue. Set a daily alarm on your phone. Put a sticky note on your bathroom mirror. Create an implementation intention. After I brush my teeth in the morning, I will practice for 5 minutes. Stack the practice with an existing habit that you never skip. Tell someone about your commitment and ask them to check in with you. The solution is better systems, not more willpower. I missed a day and feel like I've failed. You haven't failed. You've learned something about your obstacles. Missing one day doesn't erase all your progress. The neural changes you've created are still there. Just practice today. The goal isn't perfection, it's consistency over time. If you practice 25 days out of 30, you'll still see dramatic results. Don't let one missed day become an excuse to quit entirely. Chapter 6. Week 4 and beyond. Sustaining the change. The final week. Integration. Week 4 is special. This is when the practice becomes truly integrated into your life. It's no longer something you have to force yourself to do. It's something you want to do because the benefits are so clear that skipping it feels wrong. By day 28, you've established a robust neural pathway for nervous system regulation. The practice has become automatic. Your body knows what to do. Your mind settles more quickly. The 5 minutes might even start to feel too short. You might find yourself wanting to extend the practice naturally. The transformation in your daily life is now undeniable. You are measurably calmer, more centered, more capable, under pressure. This isn't wishful thinking or placebo. This is the result of 4 weeks of consistent nervous system training. People in your life have almost certainly commented on the change. You might not even notice all the ways you're different because the change has been gradual, but others can see it clearly. You're more pleasant to be around. You're more reliable under stress. You're more present in conversations. You're more thoughtful in your responses. At this point, the practice has given you something invaluable. Proof that you can change. Not through willpower or positive thinking, but through consistent, skillful action targeting the root cause of your reactivity. This proof creates a foundation of self-efficacy that extends beyond stress management. If you can do this, what else can you do? The final days of week 4 are about integration. You're not just practicing 5 minutes a day anymore, you're integrating the principles of regulation into your entire life. You're using physiological sighs throughout the day whenever you notice stress rising. You're catching yourself earlier in the stress response sequence. You're making choices from a regulated state rather than a reactive one. This is what Sarah discovered by the end of her 30 days. Her mornings still had challenges. Kids still moved slowly. Things still went wrong. Traffic still happened. But she wasn't at war with reality anymore. She could handle the morning chaos without losing herself in it. She'd do her 5-minute practice before the kids woke up. Use physiological sighs throughout the morning when she felt stress rising, and arrive at work feeling capable rather than defeated. "I'm still me," she told me. "I still feel frustration and impatience sometimes, but I'm not controlled by those feelings anymore. I can feel them and choose how to act. My kids stopped walking on eggshells around me. My relationships at work improved because I wasn't bringing all that morning stress into the office. I finally feel like I'm living my life instead of just surviving it." The maintenance phase, making it last. Let me be completely honest about what happens after the initial 30 days. You'll be tempted to stop. You'll feel so much better that you'll think you don't need it anymore. This is a trap that catches most people. The steady state practice isn't a cure, it's maintenance. Your nervous system is like a garden. You can't plant flowers once, get them looking beautiful, and then never water them again. They'll die. You have to tend them consistently. The neural pathways you've built over 30 days are real, but they're not yet permanent. If you stop practicing, they'll begin to weaken. Old patterns will reassert themselves. It might take weeks or months, but eventually you'll find yourself back where you started, reactive, overwhelmed, struggling. The good news is that maintenance is easier than building. Once you've established the practice and seen the benefits, continuing it becomes natural. You'll notice when you skip it, you'll be more reactive, less centered, more vulnerable to stress. This feedback loop naturally motivates consistency. Think of the daily practice like brushing your teeth. You don't debate whether to do it each morning. You don't need motivation. You do it because the alternative, not brushing your teeth, is unacceptable. The same becomes true for your nervous system practice. Skipping it starts to feel wrong because you can feel the difference in your day when you don't practice. Most people find that the practice actually becomes easier and more rewarding over time. What started as a disciplined 5-minute commitment becomes something you look forward to, your 5-minute anchor point in a chaotic day, your reset button when the world gets overwhelming, your way of honoring your own well-being. Some people maintain the basic 5-minute practice indefinitely. Others naturally extend it as their capacity increases, moving to 7 minutes, then 10, then 15. There's no right or wrong here. The key is consistency at whatever duration works for you. Better to practice 5 minutes daily for years than 15 minutes sporadically. Advanced practices. Going deeper. Once you've completed 30 days and established a solid foundation, you may want to explore additional practices that deepen your capacity for regulation. These are optional. The basic practice will serve you beautifully for a lifetime. But if you're interested in going further, here are some advanced techniques. Body scanning builds on your breath practice by adding systematic attention to physical sensations. After your 5 minutes of breathing, spend another 2 to 3 minutes slowly moving your attention through your body. Start with your feet. Notice any sensations there without trying to change them. Move to your calves, knees, thighs, hips, and so on, all the way up to the crown of your head. This builds interoceptive awareness, your ability to sense what's happening inside your body. The better your interoceptive awareness, the earlier you catch stress before it escalates. Bilateral stimulation involves alternating left-right activation of your body or attention. This can be as simple as tapping your knees alternately while you breathe, or walking mindfully while paying attention to the alternating sensations in your feet. Bilateral stimulation activates both hemispheres of your brain and has an intrinsically calming effect. This is part of why walking helps people think clearly and why EMDR therapy works for trauma processing. Extended breath holds can further strengthen your vagal tone and increase your resilience to stress. Once box breathing feels comfortable, you can gradually extend the holds, moving from 4 counts to 5, then 6, then 7. The key is to never strain. If it feels uncomfortable or you're gasping when you inhale, you've held too long. Build gradually over weeks and months. Heart rate variability training involves using biofeedback to optimize your breathing pattern for maximum vagal activation. Various apps and devices can measure your HRV and guide you toward your optimal breathing rhythm. This is more advanced and requires technology, but it can accelerate the benefits of the practice. Cold exposure is another advanced practice that powerfully trains stress resilience. Cold showers or ice baths create a controlled stress that your nervous system learns to handle without dysregulating. Start small, 30 seconds of cold water at the end of your shower, and build over time. The key is to maintain calm breathing while experiencing the cold, training your ability to stay regulated even when uncomfortable. But here's what's crucial. Don't abandon the foundation. Don't get so caught up in advanced techniques that you stop doing the basic practice that got you here. 5 minutes of physiological sighs and box breathing is infinitely more valuable than 30 minutes of complex practices you do inconsistently. Master the basics first. Return to them daily. Everything else is supplementary. Chapter 7. Real Transformation Stories. Sarah, from rage to presence. Let me tell you the complete story of Sarah, the single mum whose journey has threaded through this entire audiobook. When she first came to me, she was at the end of her rope. She'd been referred by her children's school counsellor after her 8-year-old daughter drew a picture in class of Mommy with her angry face. That was Sarah's breaking point. Sarah worked 2 jobs, nursing night shifts at a hospital and waitressing on weekends, to support her 2 kids after her husband left. Her mornings were a recurring nightmare. Alarm at 5:30, kids who wouldn't wake up, breakfast that nobody wanted to eat, missing homework, lost shoes, traffic that made her late for her day job. And through it all, her voice getting louder and angrier until she was screaming at children who were just being children. She'd tried everything. Anger management classes that taught her to count to 10, which didn't work when her nervous system was in full activation. Therapy that helped her understand her anger came from feeling overwhelmed and unsupported. True, but not actionable when she was in the moment. Medication that made her feel numb and disconnected, not what she wanted. She loved her kids desperately and hated the person she became every morning. When I introduced her to the steady state practice, her skepticism was palpable. 5 minutes of breathing? That's your solution? But she was desperate enough to try anything, so she committed to 30 days. Week 1 was brutal. She practiced at 5 in the morning before the kids woke up, fighting exhaustion and doubt. Her mind raced constantly during the practice. She felt like she was failing. But she kept showing up because she'd made a commitment, and if nothing else, Sarah was stubborn. Day 8, something shifted. Her daughter couldn't find her backpack, a typical trigger that would normally send Sarah into a rage spiral. Sarah felt the anger rising, caught herself, and without thinking consciously about it, took 2 physiological sighs while her daughter searched. The anger didn't disappear, but it didn't consume her either. She was able to help look for the backpack calmly. They found it, left on time, and her daughter looked at her with surprise and said, "You're not mad, Mummy?" That moment changed everything for Sarah. It was proof, undeniable, experiential proof, that she could regulate herself. She wasn't doomed to be the angry mother. Her nervous system could learn a different response. By week 3, her mornings looked completely different. Not because external circumstances changed, kids still moved slowly, things still went wrong, but because Sarah's nervous system had fundamentally shifted. She'd practice for 5 minutes before the kids woke. She'd use physiological sighs throughout the morning whenever she noticed tension rising. She started catching her stress earlier, before it escalated into rage. By day 30, her children had stopped walking on eggshells around her. Her daughter drew a new picture in class. Mummy smiling in the morning. The school counselor called Sarah to ask what had changed. Her co-workers at the hospital commented that she seemed lighter, more present. Sarah herself felt like a different person, or rather, like the person she'd always wanted to be but couldn't access through the fog of chronic stress. 6 months later, Sarah is still practicing daily. She extended her practice to 10 minutes because she wanted to, not because she had to. She's sleeping better. Her relationship with her kids has transformed. They now have real conversations instead of just surviving together. She's even started dating again, something she'd been too overwhelmed and reactive to attempt before. "I still have hard days," she told me recently, "but I don't lose myself anymore. I can feel stressed without becoming stress. That's everything." David. Executive presence. David was a senior executive at a Fortune 500 company whose career was being derailed by his inability to regulate his emotions under pressure. Brilliant strategist, terrible at managing his reactions. He'd explode at colleagues in meetings, send aggressive emails at 2 a.m. that burned bridges, alienate his team with his volatility. His boss gave him an ultimatum: fix this, or you're done, regardless of your results. David came from a family where rage was normal. His father yelled constantly. Conflict meant escalation. Disagreement meant war. He'd inherited this pattern without questioning it, and it had served him in some contexts. His aggression could intimidate people into compliance. But at senior levels, where relationship management and political savvy matter more than technical competence, his reactivity was career suicide. When I taught him the steady state practice, he approached it like everything else in his life, with intensity and high expectations. He wanted results immediately. Day 3, he was frustrated. This isn't working fast enough. I had to remind him that his nervous system had been training for reactivity for 40 years. 4 weeks of 5-minute daily practice wasn't unreasonable. The breakthrough came during a board meeting in week 2. David was being questioned aggressively about a strategic decision his division had made. He could feel his body preparing to fight, face flushing, jaw clenching, defensive arguments forming. In the past, he would have snapped back, gotten into an argument, and made enemies. This time, while a board member was speaking, David did 2 physiological sighs. 20 seconds. That's all it took. The surge of defensive reactivity passed. His thinking brain stayed online. When it was his turn to respond, he was able to address the concerns calmly and factually. He acknowledged the valid points in the criticism. He explained his reasoning without being defensive. The meeting, which had been heading toward conflict, shifted into productive problem-solving. "That meeting changed my career," David told me later. "I realized I could be passionate and direct without being destructive. I could advocate fiercely for my ideas without burning bridges." The board members who had questioned me approached me afterward to say they appreciated my thoughtful response. That would never have happened before. Over the next months, David's reputation transformed. His team stopped dreading meetings with him. His colleagues started seeking his input rather than avoiding him. His boss commented that it was like working with a different person. David got promoted to a C-suite role, something that would have been impossible with his previous reputation for volatility. "The practice didn't make me soft," David explained. "I'm still intense. I still have strong opinions. I still push hard for what I believe is right, but now I can do it from a regulated state. I can disagree without being disagreeable. I can challenge without attacking. That's made me far more effective, not less." Maria, freedom from anxiety. Maria's story is different. She didn't struggle with anger or reactivity. She struggled with paralyzing anxiety that had progressively narrowed her life until she barely left her house. It started with panic attacks in her early 20s. The first one happened in a grocery store, sudden, overwhelming terror for no apparent reason. Heart racing, can't breathe, convinced she's dying. After that, she started avoiding grocery stores. Then the attacks happened in other places, restaurants, movie theaters, eventually driving on highways. Her world shrank as her nervous system's threat detection system became increasingly sensitive. By the time Maria came to me, she was 35 and hadn't driven on a highway in 5 years. She had groceries delivered. She worked from home. She'd stopped dating because meeting new people triggered too much anxiety. She'd tried multiple medications. Some helped slightly, others had side effects worse than the anxiety. She'd done years of cognitive behavioral therapy, which helped her understand her anxiety, but didn't give her the tools to actually regulate it in the moment. Maria was deeply skeptical of the steady-state practice. "I've tried breathing exercises before. They don't work when you're having a panic attack." She was right about that. Trying to do box breathing during a full panic attack is nearly impossible. But that's not how the practice works. You don't wait until you're in crisis. You train daily so that you're less likely to reach crisis in the first place. Maria committed to 30 days. Week 1, she noticed her baseline anxiety decreasing slightly. She wasn't having fewer triggers, but her body's response to those triggers was less intense. Week 2, she realized she'd gone 3 days without a panic attack, the longest stretch in months. The real test came on day 19. Maria decided to try driving on the highway. She practiced for 5 minutes before leaving, did physiological sighs in the car before merging onto the highway, and kept her breath slow and steady as she drove. She felt anxiety rising, the familiar sensations of impending panic. But instead of spiraling, she was able to stay with the sensations, continuing to breathe, and the anxiety peaked and then passed without becoming a full panic attack. She drove 5 miles on the highway, exited, sat in a parking lot and cried, not from fear, but from relief. She had done something she thought was impossible. By day 30, Maria had driven on the highway multiple times. She'd gone to a restaurant and actually enjoyed the meal. She'd attended a friend's party, something she hadn't done in over a year. The anxiety hadn't disappeared completely, but it no longer controlled her life. "The practice gave me agency," Maria explained. "Before, anxiety was something that happened to me, and all I could do was avoid triggers. Now I can feel anxiety rising, and I have tools to work with it. Sometimes I still get anxious, but I'm not afraid of anxiety anymore because I know I can handle it. That changes everything." Maria is now back to living a full life. She's dating someone she met at that party. She's interviewing for jobs that require commuting. She's planning a road trip, something she never thought she'd do again. The practice is still her daily anchor, her way of maintaining the nervous system regulation that gave her her life back. James. Road rage to road. Calm. James had a road rage problem that had nearly cost him everything. multiple near accidents, people following him home, his wife threatening to leave if he didn't get help, his teenage son refusing to get in the car with him. But James couldn't seem to control it. The moment someone cut him off or drove too slowly, he'd explode. What James didn't understand was that his road rage wasn't really about other drivers. It was about his chronically dysregulated nervous system finding an outlet. James worked in a high-stress sales job where he had no control and constant pressure. He couldn't yell at his boss or his difficult clients. But on the road, in his car, he could release all that pent-up activation. Other drivers became proxies for all his unprocessed stress. The steady-state practice gave James something he'd never had, a way to process stress before it accumulated to explosive levels. He practiced every morning before work. He used physiological sighs between client calls. He started catching his stress earlier and regulating it before it reached critical mass. The road rage started to decrease within the first week. By day 14, he was cut off in traffic, a trigger that would normally send him into a rage spiral lasting hours. He felt the anger rising, did 2 physiological sighs while driving, and felt it dissipate. He was still annoyed, but not consumed by rage. He could let it go. By 30 days, his son asked to drive with him again, the first time in 6 months. James passed that test without a single outburst. His wife noticed the change and told him it felt like she had her husband back. James himself felt lighter, like he'd been carrying around a rage that wasn't even his, and he'd finally been able to put it down. Chapter 8. The science behind the transformation. Neuroplasticity, your brain's ability to change. Everything you've learned so far rests on one remarkable fact. Your brain can change. This wasn't always understood. For most of medical history, scientists believed the adult brain was fixed, that whatever neural patterns you developed in childhood were permanent. If you were anxious or reactive or depressed, that was just who you were. No hope for fundamental change. This belief was completely wrong, and proving it wrong has been one of the most important discoveries in neuroscience. The technical term is neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to reorganize itself by forming new neural connections throughout life. Every experience, every thought, every action shapes your brain's structure. Your brain is constantly rewiring itself based on what you do repeatedly. This is why the steady-state practice works. You're not just managing symptoms, you're literally rebuilding the neural architecture of emotional regulation. Every time you practice controlled breathing, you're strengthening certain pathways and weakening others. Every time you notice your stress response early and intervene with physiological sighs, you're training your brain to do this more automatically. Think about learning to drive a car. At first, it's overwhelming, so many things to pay attention to simultaneously. Checking mirrors, steering, accelerating, braking, watching for other cars. You have to think about every action consciously. But with practice, it becomes automatic. Your brain creates efficient neural pathways so you can drive without conscious thought. You're having a conversation with your passenger while your unconscious brain handles the complex task of driving. Nervous system regulation works the same way. At first, you have to consciously remember to do physiological sighs when stressed. You have to deliberately practice your 5 minutes daily. But with repetition, these patterns become increasingly automatic. Your brain starts to regulate without you thinking about it. You catch stress earlier. You return to calm faster. Eventually, steady state becomes your default rather than something you have to work to achieve. The research on this is extensive and compelling. Studies using brain imaging have shown that consistent meditation practice, of which controlled breathing is one form, creates measurable changes in brain structure. The prefrontal cortex, responsible for executive function and emotional regulation, becomes thicker and more active. The amygdala, responsible for threat detection and fear response, becomes smaller and less reactive. These aren't just functional changes, they're structural changes visible on MRI scans. Even more remarkably, these changes can happen relatively quickly. While some studies show effects accumulating over months or years, others have documented measurable changes in brain structure and function after just 8 weeks of daily practice. 30 days of the steady-state practice is enough time to create real, lasting neurological change. The polyvagal theory revolution. To really understand why the steady-state practice works, you need to understand polyvagal theory, one of the most important frameworks for understanding human stress and regulation. Developed by Dr. Stephen Porges, polyvagal theory reveals that your nervous system doesn't just have 2 settings, calm or stressed. It actually has 3 distinct states, each associated with different branches of your vagus nerve. The ventral vagal state is your optimal zone, safe, social, connected. When you're in ventral vagal activation, you can think clearly, relate well to others, and handle stress flexibly. Your face is expressive, your voice has prosody, you can make eye contact comfortably. This is where you want to spend most of your time. When ventral vagal fails to maintain safety, your sympathetic nervous system activates. This is fight or flight. You become hypervigilant, aggressive, or panicked. Your body is mobilized for action. This state is appropriate for genuine threats, but exhausting if maintained chronically. If the threat persists, and fighting or fleeing won't work. Your dorsal vagal system activates. This is freeze or shutdown. You become numb, disconnected, depressed. Your body essentially plays dead, the last-ditch survival strategy. This is the state of collapse and hopelessness. Most stressed people oscillate between sympathetic activation and dorsal shutdown. They're either anxious and reactive or exhausted and numb. They rarely experience true ventral vagal safety and connection. The steady-state practice specifically trains ventral vagal activation, the slow, controlled breathing signals safety to your nervous system. The daily practice teaches your nervous system that it's okay to stay in the calm, connected state for extended periods. Over time, ventral vagal becomes your default mode rather than something you can only access occasionally. This is why people who practice regularly report not just feeling calmer, but also connecting better with others. Ventral vagal activation is inherently social. When your nervous system feels safe, you can actually be present with other humans. You can listen without getting defensive. You can be vulnerable without collapsing. You can have difficult conversations without escalating into conflict. This isn't a separate skill, it's an automatic consequence of a well-regulated nervous system. Heart rate variability, the key biomarker. If you want to measure your progress objectively, there's one biomarker that matters more than any other: heart rate variability, or HRV. Most people think a steady heart rate is ideal, 60 beats per minute, exactly like a metronome. Actually, the opposite is true. A healthy heart rate varies constantly, speeding up slightly on the inhale and slowing slightly on the exhale. This variation is controlled by your vagus nerve, your brake pedal, and it indicates how flexible and responsive your nervous system is. High HRV means your nervous system can speed up when needed and slow down when appropriate. You have good regulatory capacity. Low HRV means your nervous system is stuck, either always accelerated or unable to accelerate when needed. It's the physiological equivalent of a car that can't shift gears smoothly. HRV is incredibly predictive of both physical and mental health. People with high HRV have lower rates of cardiovascular disease, better immune function, less anxiety and depression, and even longer lifespans. People with low HRV have higher rates of pretty much every negative health outcome you can measure. The beautiful thing about HR5 is that it responds to intervention. You can measure it, train it, and watch it improve. And the most effective way to improve HR5 is, you guessed it, controlled breathing practice. Studies have shown that consistent breathing practices like the steady state system can increase HRV significantly within weeks. You can measure your HRV with various apps and devices, from simple smartphone apps that use your camera to detect your pulse, to chest strap monitors, to sophisticated wearables. While not necessary for the practice to work, many people find it motivating to see objective proof of their progress. Your HRV increasing over 30 days is concrete evidence that your nervous system is fundamentally changing. The biochemistry of calm. On a biochemical level, what's actually happening when you practice? Let me walk you through the cascade of changes that occur during and after your 5-minute practice. When you begin the physiological sighs, you immediately affect your blood chemistry. The double inhale reinflates collapsed alveoli, improving gas exchange. Carbon dioxide levels normalize. This signals your brainstem that breathing is efficient, reducing the drive to breathe faster. The slow exhale activates your vagus nerve, triggering the parasympathetic response. As your vagus nerve activates, it releases acetylcholine, a neurotransmitter that slows your heart rate and reduces blood pressure. Your heart begins beating more variably, indicating increased vagal tone. Blood flow starts shifting away from your extremities back toward your core and brain, particularly your prefrontal cortex. During box breathing, you're maintaining this parasympathetic activation while also training your tolerance for carbon dioxide. The brief holds after each exhale allow CO2 to build slightly. Then you release it on the inhale. This trains your chemoreceptors to be less sensitive to CO2 buildup, which reduces anxiety. Much anxiety is driven by oversensitivity to rising CO2 levels. Meanwhile, stress hormone levels are decreasing. Cortisol, which was likely elevated from whatever stress you were experiencing, begins to drop. Adrenaline clears from your system. Your body shifts from catabolic state, breaking down resources for emergency action, to anabolic state, building, repairing, and maintaining. After the practice ends, these effects continue. Your baseline cortisol remains lower for hours. Your HRV stays elevated. Your blood pressure stays reduced. Most importantly, your nervous system has reinforced its capacity to shift from stressed to calm. The neural pathways for regulation have been strengthened. The neural pathways for reactivity have been slightly weakened. Day by day, repetition by repetition, you're tilting the balance toward regulation. This isn't magic or willpower. This is biochemistry, predictable and reliable. You're using the tools evolution gave you to regulate your nervous system, and those tools work every single time if you use them correctly. Chapter 9. Beyond Calm, the Life You Can Build. Better relationships. The unexpected benefit. Most people come to this practice to manage stress or anxiety. What surprises them is how profoundly it transforms their relationships. This isn't a side effect. It's a direct consequence of nervous system regulation. When your nervous system is chronically dysregulated, you're essentially walking around with your threat detection system on high alert. Your amygdala is primed to interpret ambiguous social signals as threatening. Your partner's neutral comment sounds like criticism. Your coworker's suggestion feels like an attack. Your friend's busy schedule seems like rejection. You're not paranoid. Your nervous system is simply doing what nervous systems do when they're stuck in threat mode, finding threats everywhere. This defensive posture destroys relationships. You're quick to take offense, slow to forgive, unable to see others' perspectives because you're so focused on defending yourself. You interpret everything through the lens of threat, which makes genuine connection impossible. People feel like they have to walk on eggshells around you, which makes them avoid you, which confirms your fear that nobody cares, which makes you more defensive. It's a tragic spiral. When your nervous system regulates through daily practice, everything changes. You're no longer in constant threat mode. Neutral comments stay neutral. Criticism can be heard as feedback rather than attack. You can tolerate discomfort in conversations because your window of tolerance is wider. You can be present with others' emotions without getting overwhelmed or defensive. This creates a positive spiral. You show up differently, more present, less reactive, better able to listen. People respond better to this version of you. Conversations go more smoothly. Conflicts resolve more easily. You feel more connected, which makes you less defensive, which makes you even more connected. Sarah's relationship with her kids transformed not because she learned new parenting techniques, but because she stopped showing up in constant fight or flight mode. David's team started following him enthusiastically, not because he learned new leadership strategies, but because he could finally be present and emotionally intelligent. Maria started dating successfully, not because she learned social skills, but because she could actually be herself without anxiety hijacking every interaction. If you want better relationships, fix your nervous system first. Everything else flows from that foundation. Career impact, performance under pressure. The ability to stay calm under pressure is one of the most valuable professional skills you can develop, and it's becoming more valuable as work becomes more complex and interconnected. Think about what happens to your cognitive performance when you're stressed. Blood flow reduces to your prefrontal cortex. Your working memory capacity shrinks. Your ability to think creatively and solve complex problems diminishes. You become rigid and reactive rather than flexible and strategic. You make poor decisions because your thinking brain is partially offline. Now think about the opposite. When your nervous system is regulated, you have full access to your cognitive resources. You can think clearly under pressure. You can process complex information. You can see multiple perspectives. You can be creative and strategic. You make better decisions because your brain is actually working properly. This makes you dramatically more effective in any role that involves pressure, complexity, or interpersonal dynamics, which is basically every professional role above entry level. You become the person others want on their team during crises. The person who can facilitate difficult conversations. The person who can think strategically when others are panicking. The person who can lead through uncertainty. David's career transformation wasn't about learning new business skills. He was already technically competent. That's how he made it to senior leadership. What changed was his ability to stay regulated under pressure, which allowed all his existing skills to actually shine through instead of being sabotaged by his reactivity. Beyond individual performance, nervous system regulation affects your professional relationships. You're better at managing up. You can receive feedback without getting defensive. Better at managing down. You can provide clear direction without your own stress contaminating your team. Better at managing across. You can navigate organizational politics without taking everything personally. This is executive presence in its truest form. Not a performance or persona, but the natural result of a well-regulated nervous system. You seem calm because you are calm. You seem confident because your nervous system isn't constantly signaling threat. You seem trustworthy because you're not reactive and unpredictable. These qualities are career multipliers at every level. Physical health, the body-mind connection. Chronic stress destroys your body. This isn't metaphorical, it's literal, measurable damage at the cellular level. Understanding this connection makes clear why nervous system regulation isn't just about feeling calmer, it's about survival. When you're chronically stressed, cortisol and other stress hormones circulate constantly at elevated levels. Over time, this causes insulin resistance, increasing your risk of diabetes. It increases blood pressure and inflammation, dramatically raising your risk of cardiovascular disease. It suppresses your immune system, making you more vulnerable to infections and slower to heal. It disrupts your gut microbiome, affecting digestion, mood, and even cognitive function. It accelerates cellular aging at the level of your telomeres, the protective caps on your chromosomes. Chronic stress is quite literally aging you faster and dying you earlier. Multiple studies have shown that people with chronic stress have significantly shorter lifespans, even controlling for other health behaviors. Nervous system regulation reverses these processes. As your baseline stress decreases through daily practice, cortisol levels normalize. Inflammation decreases. Blood pressure drops. Immune function improves. Sleep quality increases, which cascades into better health across every system. Even your gene expression changes. Certain genes associated with inflammation and stress response become less active, while genes associated with cellular repair and longevity become more active. People who maintain a regular practice often report concrete physical improvements. Fewer headaches, better digestion, less chronic pain, more energy, improved skin, stronger immunity. These aren't placebo effects. They're the natural consequence of removing the chronic stress that was damaging their bodies. If you want to live longer and healthier, nervous system regulation is one of the highest leverage interventions available. 5 minutes a day might add years to your life, and life to your years. Parenting. Breaking generational patterns. If you're a parent, nervous system regulation is one of the most important gifts you can give your children. Not because you'll be a perfect parent, no such thing exists, but because you'll stop passing your dysregulation to the next generation. Children's nervous systems are shaped by their parents' nervous systems. This happens through a process called co-regulation. Children literally borrow their parents' calm when they're distressed. If you're regulated, your child can use your regulation to help them regulate. If you're dysregulated, not only can't you help them regulate, but your dysregulation activates their stress response. When you're chronically stressed and reactive, your children learn that the world is dangerous and adults are unpredictable. They develop narrower windows of tolerance. They become more anxious or more reactive themselves. They carry this pattern into adulthood and pass it to their children. Trauma and stress responses cascade through generations, but you can break this cycle. When you regulate your own nervous system, you become a source of calm for your children rather than a source of activation. They learn through direct experience that dysregulation is temporary and manageable. They see you get stressed and watch you regulate yourself, learning the pattern unconsciously. Their windows of tolerance naturally widen because they're not living in constant threat. Sarah's story exemplifies this. Her children went from walking on eggshells, expecting mum to explode at any moment, to feeling safe and connected. They're learning from her example that stress is manageable, that emotions don't have to be overwhelming, that adults can be stable and present. These lessons will shape their entire lives and the lives of their future children. If you do nothing else for your children, regulate your own nervous system. It's more important than any parenting technique, any educational opportunity, any material advantage you could provide. A regulated parent raising children with wide windows of tolerance is giving those children the foundation for a healthy, resilient life. Chapter 10. Your 30-day commitment. The power of commitment versus motivation. We're almost at the end of this audiobook, which means we're at the beginning of what really matters: your commitment to actually doing this practice. Most people approach change through motivation. They wait until they feel motivated to practice. They skip days when they're not feeling it. They quit when the initial excitement wears off. This is why most people fail to create lasting change, despite having access to all the information they need. Motivation is unreliable. Some days you'll feel motivated. Other days you won't. Motivation comes and goes based on your mood, your circumstances, your energy level. If you rely on motivation, you'll practice sporadically at best, and sporadic practice doesn't create the neural changes that transform your nervous system. Commitment is different. Commitment means you practice regardless of how you feel. You practice when you're motivated and when you're not. You practice on good days and bad days. You practice when it's convenient and when it's not. You practice because you made a commitment to yourself, and you keep commitments. This might sound harsh, but it's actually liberating. You don't have to wait for the right mood or the right circumstances. You just have to show up and do the practice. 5 minutes. Every day. That's it. Think about brushing your teeth. You don't wait until you feel motivated to brush your teeth. You don't skip days when you're not in the mood. You just do it because the alternative, not brushing your teeth, is unacceptable. The same needs to become true for your nervous system practice. So right now, before you finish this audiobook, make a concrete commitment, not a vague intention, not a hope, an actual commitment. 30 days, 5 minutes per day. Total investment, 2.5 hours. Say it out loud if you're alone. Write it down if you have paper. Tell someone who will hold you accountable. This commitment is a promise to yourself that you're worth 5 minutes a day, that your well-being matters, that you deserve to live without being controlled by stress and reactivity. This isn't selfish. It's essential. You can't give to others from a depleted, dysregulated state. You have to fill your own cup first. Creating your practice environment. Success with this practice requires setting yourself up properly. Let me give you concrete strategies for making this work. First, choose your time. When during the day will you practice? Be specific. Not sometime in the morning, but 6:15 a.m. right after I brush my teeth. Link it to an existing habit. This is called habit stacking, and it's the most reliable way to build new behaviors. Many people practice first thing in the morning. This has several advantages. Your mind is relatively quiet, you get it done before the day's chaos begins, and you start your day from a regulated state. Others practice during lunch break, creating a midday reset. Some practice before bed, using it to transition into sleep. There's no wrong time, only the time that you'll actually do consistently. Second, choose your space. Where will you practice? Again, be specific. Not somewhere quiet, but in my bedroom sitting on the floor by the window. Having a consistent space creates a neurological cue. Your brain learns that this location means it's time to practice, making it easier to settle into the practice. Your practice space doesn't need to be perfect. You don't need a dedicated meditation room or special cushions. You just need a place where you can sit or lie comfortably for 5 minutes without interruption. Your car works. A quiet corner of your office. Even a bathroom stall if necessary, whatever it takes. Third, eliminate obstacles. What might prevent you from practicing? Phone notifications? Deal with them. Put your phone on airplane mode or leave it in another room. People interrupting? Communicate boundaries. Tell your family you need 5 undisturbed minutes. Forgetting? Set a daily alarm with a label that says nervous system practice. Fourth, track your practice. Get a simple calendar and mark an X for each day you practice. This creates visual momentum. You'll see your streak building and feel motivated to not break it. Some people use apps for this. Others use a notebook. The method doesn't matter. The tracking does. Fifth, anticipate obstacles. You will face resistance. Your brain will offer excuses. Plan for this. Write down your top 3 excuses for skipping practice, then write down your counterargument to each. When your brain says, "I'm too busy," you'll have a prepared response. I have time to scroll social media, so I have time for 5 minutes of practice. The bet revisited. What you stand to gain. Remember the bet I made you at the beginning of this audiobook? Give me 5 minutes a day for 30 days, and you'll become the calmest person in any room you enter. If it doesn't work, you've lost 2.5 hours total. But if it does work, everything changes. Now you know exactly what that bet entails. You understand the neuroscience. You've learned the practice. You've heard the transformation stories. You know this works, not through faith or wishful thinking, but through predictable, reliable biology. So let me make the stakes clear. If you don't do this practice, you'll continue living as you have been. Reactive when you want to be calm. Overwhelmed when you want to be capable. Disconnected when you want to be present. Controlled by stress that serves no purpose. That's the cost of not taking this bet. If you do this practice consistently for 30 days, here's what you stand to gain. You'll handle stress without being controlled by it. You'll feel anxiety or anger or frustration, but these emotions won't hijack you. You'll have space between stimulus and response. That crucial gap where choice and wisdom live. Your relationships will improve. You'll be more present, less defensive, better able to connect. People will want to be around you because you're not radiating threat. Conflicts will resolve more easily because you can stay regulated during difficult conversations. Your work will improve. You'll make better decisions because your thinking brain has the resources it needs. You'll perform better under pressure. You'll lead more effectively if you're in leadership. You'll collaborate more smoothly if you're on a team. Your health will improve. Lower stress means lower cortisol, lower inflammation, better sleep, stronger immunity, slower aging. You'll literally be healthier at the cellular level. You'll sleep better. A regulated nervous system can actually down-regulate at night, allowing for deep, restorative sleep instead of lying awake with a racing mind. You'll have more energy. Chronic stress is exhausting. It drains your resources constantly. When your nervous system regulates, you'll have energy for things beyond just surviving. You'll trust yourself more. You'll know you have tools that work. You'll know you can handle stress without losing yourself. This self-efficacy extends beyond nervous system regulation. If you can do this, what else can you do? Most importantly, you'll feel like yourself again. Not some suppressed, numbed version of yourself. Not some fake, calm version pretending everything is fine. Your actual self. Capable, present, engaged with life rather than just surviving it. That's what's at stake. That's what you're betting on. 2.5 hours of practice over 30 days in exchange for fundamental transformation of how you experience life. Your first practice, right now. Don't wait until tomorrow. Don't wait until you have the perfect setup, or the perfect time, or the perfect mood. Do your first practice right now, immediately after finishing this audiobook. Find a comfortable position. Set a timer for 5 minutes. Close your eyes if you're comfortable doing so, or keep them open with a soft gaze, if not. Take a deep breath in through your nose. Before you exhale, take a second shorter breath in through your nose. Then exhale slowly through your mouth, twice as long as the combined inhales. Repeat 2 more times. Feel your body beginning to settle. Now shift to box breathing. Breathe in for 4 counts. Hold for 4 counts. Breathe out for 4 counts. Hold for 4 counts. Continue this pattern for the next 3 minutes. When your mind wanders, and it will, simply notice and return to the breath. In for 4, hold for 4, out for 4, hold for 4. When you have about 30 seconds left, do one final physiological sigh. Deep breath in, shorter breath in, long exhale out. Then sit quietly until your timer sounds. Notice how you feel. Notice the quality of your mind. That's day 1. Congratulations. You've started. The challenge. 30 days, no excuses. Here's my final challenge to you. 30 days of practice. No skipped days, no excuses. 5 minutes, every single day. This isn't about perfection. Your mind will wander during practice. That's fine. Some days will feel harder than others. That's fine. You won't feel immediate transformation. That's fine. What matters is showing up consistently. Think of these 30 days as an experiment. You're testing a hypothesis. Can 5 minutes of daily nervous system practice fundamentally change how I experience life? There's only one way to find out. Actually do the experiment. Imagine yourself 30 days from now. You've done the practice every single day. You've tracked each session. You've watched your reactions to stress gradually shift. You've noticed yourself staying calm in situations that would previously have triggered you. You've experienced the compound benefits rippling through your relationships, your work, your health, your sleep. That version of you 30 days from now will be grateful you started today. They'll look back on this moment as the turning point. The day you stopped being controlled by your nervous system and started training it. The day you took your life back from stress and reactivity. But that future only happens if you start now, not tomorrow, not next week, not when circumstances are perfect. Now. Final words. The bet is on. I've given you everything you need. The science, the practice, the strategies, the stories, the understanding of why you react the way you do and how to change it. You have all the tools. Now it's on you. Nobody can do this practice for you. Nobody can force you to commit. Nobody can make you prioritize 5 minutes a day for your own well-being. That's your choice and yours alone. But here's what I know from working with thousands of people. If you do this practice consistently for 30 days, you will change. Not might change, will change. The neuroscience is clear. The biology is predictable. The results are reliable. You'll become the calmest person in the room, not through suppression or pretending, through genuine nervous system regulation that allows you to be fully present and fully yourself without being controlled by stress. The world needs more calm people, people who can think clearly under pressure, people who don't escalate conflicts, people who can be present with difficult emotions without getting overwhelmed, people who model what steady state looks like. That could be you. That should be you. The bet is simple. 5 minutes a day, for 30 days. 2.5 hours total. If it doesn't work, you've lost almost nothing. But if it does work, and I promise you it will, everything changes. So here we are. The audiobook is ending. Your transformation is beginning. Are you in? The bet is on. I'll see you on the other side of 30 days. Now go practice.